On today's show, how can the Ottawa Senators fix their league worst goaltending from last season? We're going to take a look at both the free agent list and potential trade targets.
And we continue our 2024 NHL Draft Prospect Profiles with someone who may be the highest rated Swedish prospect and my top rated defenseman so far.
We're right in the Sens range at 25. We'll get into all that and more. This is Locked On Sens.
I'm Jake Sanderson.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory, while Brandon Piller is up in Utah mountains. You can also find us on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter and lockedon.senators on Instagram. As you've seen throughout the Stanley Cup playoffs, goaltending is paramount to success. So should the Sens go the free agent route or through trade if they are looking to improve on that position? Let us know in the comments below. You know, today's episode is also brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. It's the official sports betting partner of Locked On. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. Today is Wednesday, June 5th, and Pilsy, you're a special guest on your own show.
Yeah, it feels good to be a part of the Locked On Senators podcast. Thanks for having me. I was just having my morning coffee and was going to look through some draft articles and EP's draft guide, and I thought, hey, I wonder if Ross is recording yet. So I just hopped on, and here we are. I'm glad to be back.
A goalie-friendly show talking goalies. I need my partner in crime to do just that, but how's the trip been so far? You're obviously doing a lot of hiking. The views look ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, it's been great. I'm pretty excited that hockey's coming to Utah because this is a destination for people to come see. Salt Lake City, pretty nice place. Only spent a bit of time there, but Zion National Park, getting lots of hiking in, getting my steps in, getting some tanning going. So it's been a great vacation so far, but I couldn't resist, Ross. We're talking goalies. I had to get back on.
Well, I heard everybody knew you were gone, but then when we saw it, you were in the middle of your homework while you're on vacation. There are no days off when the draft's only 3.5 weeks away. How far have you gotten into that behemoth? I called it yesterday a marathon read, the Elite Prospects Draft Guide.
Oh, man, I've only just been skimming through and kind of prospects that I want to learn a little bit more about. I've been checking out their pages, so I haven't done a deep dive yet, but when I'm doing my traveling, especially on the plane ride home, I'm going to be flipping through those pages for sure.
Hopefully not the paper copy. Who would be dumb enough to make that mistake and print out all 1,900 pages of the draft guide? Where I go right away at the draft guide is the medals, where they give out the top 5 of each category. Remember, Jake Sanderson was Mr. Medals. The guy was top 3 in everything across the board. So we'll get into more of the draft profiles later on this episode. I love me some Charlie Elick and Ryder Ritchie. Sahlin Wallenius, I could live with the pick, but left shot again, so not at the top of my radar. Charlie Elick, former teammate with Ridley Gregg with the Brandon Wheat Kings. So all that to say, lots of draft coverage coming up here, Locked On Senators. But Pilsy, you ain't got goaltending. Doesn't matter who you draft, you're not going to have success. The Senators have taken swing after swing after swing. It didn't work with Matt Murray, didn't work with Cam Talbot. It didn't work last season with Jonas Korpisalo. And that's only like the main firing line. There's also the Forsbergs, the Gustafsons, and so on and so forth. Marcus Hogberg coming back to North America this year. But where do you go? The trade market or free agency? That's the place to start.
Well, I mean, if you're looking to get a quality goaltender, Ross, you have to look at the trade market. We've seen what happens if you try to dive into a free agent goalie, and it didn't exactly work out for the Ottawa Senators. Korpisalo only 1 year into his deal, and already Sens fans are scrambling to see how we can get out of that and looking to add another goalie. But I do believe if you're looking for a cheap short-term goalie option, free agency is the way to go. And we've got some options that I really like. I've talked about it throughout the season. I just think the way the Senators' situation is in goal cap-wise, they're not going to be able to properly bring in another quality goalie. Otherwise, they're going to be spending probably close to $10 million in goaltending, which might not work out for this team. So it'll be interesting to see how things go, because we're going to have to see what the Senators do with the two goalies they have right now before we can really get a picture of what their options are externally.
We can, though, know who is available both in the free agent market. Easier to tell, but Linus Ullmark's name has just been out there since the trade deadline, when he reportedly turned down what was an agreed upon trade with the LA Kings. Jacob Markstrom's a name where I've been circling the connection with Travis Green. He hasn't been happy in Calgary. He's a longtime veteran, but he also had to deal with an injury at the end of last season. Is that the type of thing that will be nagging for a guy who's 35 years old? On the other side, you go full elite talent. UC Saros, definitely the most valuable of these goalies on the trade. He'll command the most, and July 1st, he'll be able to sign an extension, which adds a very interesting wrinkle, not only to Saros, but people forget Ullmark as well. UFA after next season. He's making probably around what he'll make on his next deal. I think maybe a little bit more for inflation. But for UC Saros, he's making $5 million. That's a huge steal. He's due for like a $3-4 million raise to be up there with the higher paid goalies in the league. So those are three legit starters, Pilsy. If the Sens got any of those three guys, I think we might see the mainstream media start taking that same approach. Like, oh, the Senators fixed their problem. Senators going to be a playoff team. Like, that whole cycle will start again. We're on record. Prove it. The first 25 games of next season may as well be the playoffs, because the Senators need to treat it like that to get out of the gate at least competently. But Pilsy, any of those three guys, of course, the price of acquisition would have to be factored in here, but that would give them a legit veteran to lean on. And I don't think you can find that in free agency this year.
No, it's tough. And I think any of those goalies you mentioned, Ross, they start with a Jacob Chychrun trade. I think that's how you make the money work. That's how you get the value to where it needs to be to even start the conversation. And then I'm not sure if you'd have to add extra to that or what that would look like. I'm not about to do a mock trade proposal. I think that never works out. So I'm not about to do that. But I really think, Ross, the only thing here is we can't have a situation where the Sens push all their chips in and they're like, we're a goalie away from being a contending team, so let's make this big trade. And then the player expires, his deal expires 1 year later, and then he's like, yeah, I don't really like it here. See you guys later. And we did that with DeBrincat. Looks like that's what's happening with Chychrun. So if they're going to go up big head hunting after any of these goalies in the trade market, better come with an extension.
And those two guys you mentioned were at least RFAs at the end of their contract, whereas for DeBrincat at least, whereas for Ullmark or Swayman, they could literally just be like, okay, see ya for nothing. Give him the old Johnny Gaudreau rather than Matthew Tkachuk. You know, you're at least going to get that. Chychrun is a UFA after next season, but they've got that to work with for him. With UFAs, I'm wary about the two guys at the top. Laurent Brossoit, should mention, Stanley Cup champion, and then was even better statistically in Winnipeg last year. William Jennings Award. His name is not on the trophy. How garbage is this, Pilsy? The league stipulates you have to play, I believe, 25 appearances to get your name on the trophy. He played 23 or 24 this past year.
23, Ross. I'm looking at it right now.
That's ridiculous. Like, if it's one game or two games, I get not being included. But if you're the second guy, it's a two-person tandem always. That's half his trophy, and I bet you Hellebuck would say the same.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Ross, and this would make it a little bit dramatic, is the William M. Jennings trophy. They should go to the starter and be like, you want to get your buddy on here too, or is this just your award? And then the starting goalie gets to decide.
So, Laurent Brossoit, man, he was awesome this year. Now, he was kind of spot started, and Hellebuck has a very strong workload, plays a lot of games, but he's good. He deserves a shot as a starter. It's just the stakes are so high right now for the Senators. You don't know, because Brossoit's never had to be a guy who plays 12, 11 games in a single month, right? We haven't seen that workload and how he would react to it. And he's due for a pretty big raise. I think he was making about 2.75, if I'm not mistaken, Pilsy on his last deal. And he's probably commanding over 3. So unless you're moving on Korpisalo's money, it's probably not going to work, even though Forsberg's at 2.75. So you could equal his last year if you're able to move from Forsberg without any retained salary. But him and Stolarz, they scare me because they're kind of career backups who were still backups last year, but were the best at it. So they are going to get paid. Stolarz is a beast, by the way. He's 6'6" and like 240. He takes up a ton of net. But I'm nervous with any of the options in the UFA side. Nobody has that prove it. The only one who you'd argue would. We've been there, done that. Cam Talbot ain't coming back.
No, God, no. But that's actually, I'll spin zone it this way, Ross. That argument is actually a reason why I think it would work for Brossoit and Stolarz, because they've been in situations where they've been backups on teams with good defense and good starting goalies. So they could look at Ottawa being like, look, I know Korpisalo's there. He's getting the big payday. He's got the long contract. But Korpisalo does not have that starter job set in stone. So they could look at this as a situation where, unlike being on a contending team where I know I'm the backup, I have an opportunity to make a name for myself here. And if the Ottawa Senators trust me, and I could see either of these guys playing 30, 40 games, both of them kind of play right around 25 games a year. That's their kind of average. They could really change their career coming to Ottawa and getting an opportunity like this. So I think it could work. Ross, I actually think I'm leaning towards the UFA side of the argument here, just because of the predicament that the Ottawa Senators find themselves in. Is it the best way to solve your problem? I don't think so. But if you're looking at giving these guys a 1-year prove-it deal, maybe bump up their paycheck considerably to entice them, I think it could make a lot of sense. So I like the option of Brossoit or Stolarz.
Let us know in the comments who on this list of 6 UFAs and 5 trade targets, who do you like the most? I also put Philip Gustafson's name on there, our old friend, just because he is on the trade bait board that Daily Faceoff put out, and John Gibson's name has just been rumored forever to get traded somewhere. And now Lucas Dostal is that guy. He's that good. He will be the starter in Anaheim in no time. So is Gibson going to be on the move? Now that would in all likelihood go to, a Pittsburgh, his hometown, or somewhere in the States, but we will put his name on there just because it has been rumored for so long. So let us know in the comments who's going to be the goalie for the Ottawa Senators on opening night. Pilsy, last question I'll ask you on this. Is it going to be whether it's one of those names or a surprise, or will it be Korpisalo / Forsberg, one of them?
No, are you asking if they're going to run it back?
Yes. Or if one of those two guys will start the home opener, or the opener of the season, not home opener.
I wouldn't be surprised if they give Korpisalo the home opener just to try to show him like, hey, we're going to give you a clean slate. We're going to give you an opportunity here. You're our guy, unless they go out at big headhunting and get one of those guys. But I don't think that's going to happen. So it pains me to say, Ross, but I wouldn't be surprised if Korpisalo is the home opener goalie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some thoughts for me before we get to our draft rankings. We had Nolan Baumgartner on Jets at Noon at the radio station I'm at here in Winnipeg. Really smart guy. Talked about, again, the need for veterans. So this is internal, just top of the priority list. They want some veterans to insulate. He's like, we got some young, exciting players. We need veterans to insulate them. So and one of the questions, our guy Kelly Moore, he's talking about the decor. And when he name dropped Chikrin, I was like, Magic Johnson meme. He ain't gonna be there. No.
Yeah.
But Nolan Baumgartner seems like a smart guy. I didn't realize this. He's like 8th all time in AHL scoring or games played. Like, he's an AHL Hall of Famer.
I did not know that. That's solid. I mean, Ross, I know you did your whole first segment about it last episode. So just quickly, I'll chime in here. I'm very happy with the assistant coaching staff here. Like, this is and I've been saying it all along, the head coach job, obviously very important, but they needed to figure out and get some proper assistant coaches in here. And I think they've done that. I'm very happy with how this coaching staff is shaped up.
There you have it. The Ottawa Senators coaching staff's complete. For more on that, check out yesterday's Locked On Senators. For now, we get back to our draft rankings, a pair of defensemen, and a very high-tempo forward. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You guys know FanDuel is the official online sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, and for a good reason. They're North America's #1 sportsbook. Why would you go anywhere else? And if you're looking to make big stake wagers, well, it's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL. The finals are coming up. They're making us wait, Ross. So get your research in, get your futures in, look at all the analytics, figure out what bets you like, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, futures, parlays, whatever you want, you can do it at FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Today's episode is brought to you by our great friends at the GLEBE Central Pub. Make sure to head down to the GLEBE Central Pub on any outing, whether you're going shopping at Lansdowne or just out for a good time. The GLEBE Central Pub will host anything for you. They've got the events, the calendars on their website, live music every Saturday night. It's just a great time at the Glebe Central Pub. Open mic night goes every Wednesday. Taco Thursdays, $5 tacos on Thursday. So get there tomorrow for that. Tuesday is trivia night, wing night on Monday. There's always something going down at the GCP. The vibes are free at the GCP. They're a huge supporter of the Locked On Senators podcast, and we would love for you to show them a good time. Make it your neighborhood pub. It's right in the heart of the Glebe. They've got awesome food. I'm a big smash burger guy. They're taking over the world, and they do it right at the Glebe Central Pub. So head there today. Have a pint of the day. My goodness, always great vibes at the GCP. At 779 Bank Street, where the vibes are free, go check them out and let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. It's the Glebe Central Pub. The Glebe Central Pub. All right, a reminder, you can follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. All right, back to our NHL Draft Rankings, and coming in at 29, it's defenseman Leo Sahlin Wallenius from overseas in Sweden. Pilsy, this kid, he's a player.
Yeah, and most importantly about Sahlin Wallenius, Ross, he's a skater. A lot of scouts, including Scott Wheeler, our friend over at The Athletic, calls him one of the best skating D-men in the draft. He's a left shot defenseman in 43 games in the J20 National League with the Lakers. He had 11 goals, 31 assists, good for 42 points. So basically a point per game guy as a defenseman. He had 3 points in 5 playoff games. Then at the U18s as an assistant captain of Team Sweden, he had 3 assists in 7 games, and he was playing big minutes for Team Sweden, Ross. I have him averaging over 24 minutes a night in that U18 tournament.
Yeah, Jimmy Hamlin said that even in the U20 league and Jimmy Hamlin's with Elite Prospects in their discussion I was watching, and apparently he's playing upwards of 30 minutes a night sometimes for his U20 team, just always out there, trust from the coaches, and he's producing clearly when you look at the results, a plus 20 rating as well. And he's 6 foot tall, left shot defenseman. It is worth noting, an April birthday. And when you come to the rankings, this is super interesting. Look at this. Scott Wheeler at 26, Craig Button at 29, McKean's at 32, Peters at 33, Bob McKenzie at 38. Okay, all pretty close. Then we've got Corey Pronman at 21. Huge fan of this guy. And Elite Prospects, on the other hand, not so much. They have him all the way down at 60. So a couple outliers, but otherwise I think we've kind of nailed the range here for Leo Sahlin Wallenius. And at Bob McKenzie having him at 38, it really kind of begs me the discussion about 39 for the Ottawa Senators. We'll get to that. But Pilsy, this is a bit of a down year for Swedish prospects overall. There's no Lucas Raymond coming. There's no guy in the top 3, top 4, but there are a lot of depth options. That being said, we already covered Alphonse Frey. You can see that draft profile on YouTube. Well, it turns out Sahlin Wallenius is his teammate. So what do you think is more accurate about Sahlin Wallenius? that he is the best Swedish prospect in this draft class, or that he's the best skating defenseman in the draft class?
Well, Ross, right off the top, you mentioned the rankings. We have to zero in on EP having him at 60, because what's the one thing we always talk about with EP? A lot of their rankings are skewed to how good of a skater is this player. And Wheeler says he's arguably the best skating D-man in the draft. So why does EP have him so low? At the time of recording, we don't have EP's full draft guide out yet, so we're going to have to dig into that ourselves later. But that makes me think that EP isn't as high on his skating as Scott Wheeler and some of the other scouts are. So Ross, I'm going to go ahead and say that Leo Sahlin Wallenius will be the top Swedish player selected in the 2024 NHL draft.
Now, to compare them both on the same team, you look at Alphonse Frey, also with Sahlin Wallenius, they would more so be offensive defensemen. They produce, they're putting up points. Sahlin Wallenius obviously is counted on in all situations as well, but he also led his team in scoring, not among defensemen, Pilsy, overall. So I'm looking at a guy who's confident with the puck. His shot, I think, is more accurate than it is hard, but he's the type of guy where I think you're going to really be excited about what he becomes when he comes over to North America. I think seeing him on the small ice is going to be critical. Didn't have as much point production at the U18s, wore an A for Team Sweden, 3 assists in 7 games at that tournament. But overall, I think a very successful year for Sahlin Wallenius to bump his draft status up, because he played in the same league last year, albeit as a 16, 17-year-old. Okay? He had 8 points in 30 games. So to go from that to 42 and 43 and 11 goals, I think that tells you a lot about the progression in his game.
Yeah, definitely. And Ross, just a little added wrinkle, or I shouldn't say wrinkle, bonus to Sahlin Wallenius' game. He can play the right side. When I was watching U18 highlights, I was looking for him, and then I kept looking at the left shot defenseman. I was like, where is Sahlin Wallenius? Like, he's like their top guy. He's on the right side of the ice there. So clearly he's comfortable playing both, especially at a tournament like that. You wouldn't have him playing the right side when it's only going to be 7 games and it's an international thing. So clearly he's comfortable. Now, Sens fans were a little nervous when we hear defensemen can play the right side. It doesn't always work out the way we want. And ironically enough, Ross, Corey Pronman, who is the highest on Sahlin Wallenius of our scouts, his player comparable is Erik Brandstrom.
Okay. But he was also listed at 5'11" there, and he's a guy who's already now at 6 foot, at least on the NHL Central Scouting. So you're hoping that maybe he can get a little bit more size and muscle to beat guys in front of his own net and allow his goalie to see the puck. But I don't mind the player comparable from the sense that he's not going to, I don't think, blow you away with offense at the next level. But I think what you're going to get is a steady two-way presence. Good at going back for pucks, calm, makes a good first outlet pass, and just allows the game to come to him. Doesn't chase things out there. And I think that steady presence would allow him to no doubt be a first rounder in some years, because you jump to get a defenseman. But this year it's so different. I think the defensemen are going to reign supreme here. So it's about what flavor you like, whether you want to go with the chocolate, the strawberry. I think this one would be a little more vanilla, where you're going to get a decent player, but I don't think I think the less you hear about Wallenius when he's in the NHL, the better, because he's just doing his thing as a shutdown kind of, two-way mobile defenseman. He's your modern-day shutdown defenseman, but I don't think you're going to see him crack 30 points at the NHL level in a single season.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call him a shutdown defenseman, though, Ross. This is a
skating defenseman.
Yeah. And you talk about the ice cream comparisons. Well, to me, Ross, I feel like Sahlin Wallenius, he's a milkshake. He goes down smooth. Like, he's able, like, this is a guy that he gets it done quickly. He's a fast skater. He uses his skater to get out of issues that he's into. If he pinches and he needs to get back, he can haul it back and get back into play without any problems there. He can catch up. He's a well-rounded defenseman that dominates his peers. Now, I'm not really sure what the situation is with the Lakers. Because Ross, I would love to see him have an opportunity to play in the Allsvenskan League. Now, like I mentioned, I'm not sure if that's a possibility for them, if he'd have to be loaned out.
Yeah, you can loan him out.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So if they have to loan him out to get him to the Allsvenskan League, I think that would be good. I don't think he's quite ready to jump into the SHL full time, but also I think Sahlin Wallenius has made it very clear there's not much else he needs to accomplish in the J20 League, right? Like he's dominating there. So I think this is a great defenseman prospect. Anytime you have a defenseman that can skate the way scouts are raving about Sahlin Wallenius' skating, a guy that plays left and right side, a leader in his country as assistant captain of Team Sweden, I think you've got the makings of a really good prospect here, Ross. I've got him 4 out of 5 stars.
4 out of 5 stars. So the left shotness, handedness doesn't sway you away?
I mean, it does a little bit. Again, I'll put this precursor on. If the Ottawa Senators select a Sam Dickinson, a Zeev Boyum, Anton Siliev, a left shot defenseman with that 7th overall pick, you're not about to go and make a selection at 25 of Sahlin Wallenius, in my opinion. So that certainly factors into things here. But if they decided to go for him at 25, I wouldn't be jumping with joy, but I wouldn't be pissed off either. And if he falls all the way to 39 and they haven't selected a left shot defenseman, go grab him, in my opinion. 4 out of 5 stars for Sahlin Wallenius.
Sahlin Wallenius coming in at number 29 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. On the other side, a couple more, including a right shot defenseman from the Brandon Wheat Kings and a player whose uncle played for the Ottawa Senators. Those profiles are next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. All right, a reminder, you can follow Locked On Senators on Twitter at Sens Central and on Instagram, lockedon.senators. All right, coming in at number 28 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings, it's a right shot defenseman standing 6'3" from the Brandon Wheat Kings. It's Charlie Elick. Man, what a season this kid had.
Ross, right-hand shot defenseman that's 6'3", that plays in arguably the most physical league in the CHL and the WHL with the Brandon Wheat Kings, a place the Ottawa Senators are familiar drafting from. This guy checks a lot of the boxes for me. I'll just get it out there right away so people know I'm a Charlie Elick guy. I think that he is going to be a guy that the Ottawa Senators certainly should target. And I think with 25 or 39, they could certainly have potential to get him. I think he's going to be in that range. In 65 games with the Brandon Wheat Kings, he has 4 goals, 23 assists, 27 points. Now you might be thinking, hey, those points don't really jump off the page at you, and that's fine because he's not about putting up points. He's more about keeping them off the board, which is something the Ottawa Senators need. In 4 playoff games, he had 3 assists, and he was a defenseman with Team Canada in the U18s, and he also had 3 assists, but in 7 games with Team Canada. Ross, what do you like about this player?
I think that what you like is the modern day shutdown style because he's a good skater and he also finds himself in a strong position to be a penalty killer. What I also like, Pilsy, I'm looking at it right now, and Charlie Elick's World Under 18s, it didn't finish perfect, -2 in the final against Team USA. They still got the victory, but in the first 4 games of that tournament, he was +8 and had 3 assists in the 4 games. So
that's what I'm talking about.
He's 8, and I think that I don't want to use the scratching the surface term, but I do think there is a little bit more offense there, right? If he can get some shots off from the point, I think that you're looking at a bit of a development curve for him. He's not going to save the day next year in the NHL, that's for sure. He's coming back to junior, and unfortunately, the way that the competitive balance works in the WHL, the Brandon Wheat Kings are not at a competitive window right now. Not at all. They got smoked in the first round of the playoffs, swept 4 games, and it wasn't good for Charlie Elick. It makes sense. Your best players are going to be out there on the ice a lot, And when you're overmatched like that, it's not usually going to go so well. He's -9 in 4 games during a sweep. And now, albeit a sweep to the Moose Jaw Warriors, who are in the Memorial Cup, right? They got the champs, which means, they finished the last playoff spot. But Charlie Elick, to me, is a kind of guy where he's projectable, but he needs to work on his puck skills. You need to be able to make I think a little bit better of a breakout pass consistently. And if he can do that, I love the in zone defending. I love the defending off the rush. I even think in the offensive zone, he's good at keeping the play moving. When it comes back to him, he's either going to whip it over to his D partner, get a shot on net. He's making quick decisions. I love all that, but I want everyone on my team to be a puck carrier out of the zone in a pinch. We've seen it with guys like, JBD, not confident skating the puck out of the zone, and it's hindering what his next step in his development's going to be. So if I'm the Senators, I'm having him all summer watch Jake Sanderson skate the puck up with ease every time and kind of have him learn some of those tendencies. But I really do like the prospect as well. The fact that he's a right shot is the cherry on top, but I would like him even if he's a left shot defenseman, just with the style that he plays.
Ross, I'm going to do a positive sandwich with Charlie Elick here. I think that's a good way to go about it here. So starting off with the positive bun on top, or no, I did this last time and you made fun of me. You don't make a sandwich starting with the top bun.
Fact.
Starting the positive sandwich with the bottom bun. So
wait,
put stuff on
plate?
top of it. Who needs a plate? Don't waste dishes. Eat over the sink. What I love about Elick's game is he plays a physical game at 6'3". What do you have him here? Not a 194 pounds. You want him to play a physical game. Use that size to your advantage, and he does. Thank you. Check. He's a solid skater, and not a solid skater for his size, just a solid skater in general. You love that, especially from a defenseman. He kills penalties, so there's the positive defensively. And Scott Wheeler calls him, and quote, a steady, engaged defender with real defensive upside. Love that. And then Ross, like you mentioned, got to work on the offense a little. Wheeler says a developing offensive game. So that's what you want to see. That's what I want my prospects doing, Ross, especially defensemen. Figure out how to shut down other players defensively. And then once you've mastered that, then let's work on getting some points going here. And now, you mentioned that he's not a guy that can break the puck up the ice here. So here's going to be my negative patty in the positive sandwich here. There is some concerns, some flags with Elick here. He's really not able to move the puck up the ice. He really struggles with that. And that's going to be an issue where you're going to have teams dump the puck in the right corner more often than not, because they know he's going to have to pass it over to his left shot defenseman that can move the puck up out of the ice, or they can put pressure on him and they're going to be able to force him to cause a turnover here. So obviously you don't want that. But Ross, I think if you pair him with a left shot puck moving defenseman, you can figure out a lot of this. And like you said, have him learn from someone that's good at transitioning the puck up the ice, and you can have a lot of success here. Now, for the positive top bun of the sandwich here, I see the offensive upside that Wheeler's talking about. What Elick does really good is taking low risk shots from the point. I love a defenseman that takes low risk shots from the point. Nothing pisses me off more, Ross, than a defenseman that just decides, I'm going to take clap bombs all day. I don't care if they hit the net, hit my teammate in the face, or go wide by 3 feet. I'm just going to keep teeing up these clap bombs and just cross my fingers and hope for the best. What a waste of time that is. Charlie Elick says, no, I'm going to use a low wrister to get through traffic. And there's so many different variables that can happen. It just goes clean in. You love that. It's deflected off your teammate or someone else in front. That's great. Or what Charlie Elick does a lot of is he gets that low wrister, pad save, rebound, goal. And being able to do the POP, the pass off the pads, is so clutch for a defenseman because it keeps, like you mentioned, Ross, it keeps the play going, keep things going in the offensive zone, not just missing the net wide and having it wrap around the boards and you've cleared the puck out of your own offensive zone. You don't want that. So that's where I really see a lot of skill for Elick there, Elick, sorry, and he can sneak into the play, joining the rush and finding open ice. So there are those little flashes of offense that Wheeler's talking about where you can see that he is working on that and he is progressing that. So for that reason, a guy that's already figured out how to be a shutdown defenseman and is already progressing offensively, there's a lot to like here.
So much to like. On Corey Pronman's list, he's 22 overall. Bob McKenzie has him at 28, Elite Prospects at 24, and Chris Peters at 27. Are the Sens in that range? Well, Scott Wheeler has him at 35, McKean's at 38. Are the Senators in that range? Oh, and then Craig Button, surprising for me, he's lowest on him, down at 58. Again, Button is what they're going to be in 4 or 5 years from now. And maybe he thinks that because there's not as much excitement in his game, maybe that's why he's lower on him. But I really like the player.
Maybe.
I really like the player, even though, maybe there's a lower ceiling, but all of a sudden, if he figures out the offense, I think he could pop as well as soon as this upcoming season. Send stars for Charlie Elick.
Ross, this is one of my highest rated players yet. For Charlie Elick, I've got him at 4.5 stars. I mean,
wow.
This is the type of defenseman the Ottawa Senators are looking for, isn't it? A right shot defenseman with size that plays a shutdown game, that can skate and is improving on offense. Like, you could put this guy beside Sanderson. You could put this guy beside Thomas Chabot. I mean, if you wanted, you could even put him on a bottom pair with Tyler Clevin and have those two just be a shutdown pair. Now, you want one of those guys to be able to break the puck up today, so that wouldn't be ideal. But that's the kind of thing I'm seeing with Charlie Elick here, is that if you need a shutdown physical defenseman, he's your guy. So I would love, Ross, for the Ottawa Senators, again, if they don't select a right-hand shot defenseman with 7th overall, to pick Charlie Elick with number 25. There's no chance he's making it to 39.
And the thing about Elick, too, we got to mention, he's got a mean streak to him as well. Yeah. He's the type of guy, he's going to be physical out there. He's going to let him know when he's out on the ice. Charlie Elick comes in at number 28 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. All right, coming in at number 27 on the Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings, it's Ryder Ritchie of the Prince Albert Raiders. He's an August birthday, really one of the younger players in this draft class. He's 6 feet tall, 175 pounds, and Pilsy, this guy, a buzzsaw, continually came up as I did my research.
Buzzsaw. All right, I like that. First, you got to mention some of his accolades here. He was the WHL Rookie of the Year in 2022-2023, so not last season, the season before, where in 61 games he had 55 points. So to jump onto the scene in junior like that at almost a point per game pace is pretty damn impressive. So you got to tip your cap to that. Let's get to a little more recent, though. Last season, he played in 47 games. Wheeler mentioned that he had a lower body injury in December that sidelined him for a bit. So that's why you see the games played so low there. But he was able to put up points when he was on the ice, because in 47 games, he had 19 goals, 25 assists, good for 44 points. So pretty close to a point per game. And then he ramped it up in the playoffs, 7 points in 5 playoff games. And he continued the points, Ross, when it came to the U18s with Team Canada. In 7 games, he had 8 points. So this guy's able to step up to the plate when he needs to.
Yes, he is. And he's also the type of guy, for me, I put coach's pet on there, and not because he's a suck up, because he's the kind of guy who the coach is going to rely on in all situations. And I also think he's got that offensive pop too, that when you're down a goal, he's the kind of guy in junior at that level that the coach is going to tap on the shoulder, say, hey, we need one. Go get us one. Bob McKenzie, the highest on him at 21 on our rankings there. McKean's is at 23. Scott Wheeler at 29. Craig Button at 32. Chris Peters at 37. Corey Pronman all the way down at 49. And forgot to mention Elite Prospects has him at 27. what to you is the defining attribute for Ryder Ritchie?
I would say just his creative playmaking, Ross. Like the highlights I was watching of him on 2-on-1s, he's so shifty. Like if you've watched hockey, I say the word 2-on-1 and you can play out how that 2-on-1 goes in your mind, Ross, right? Two forwards coming in, a defenseman coming down. The forward with the puck is waiting. If the defenseman goes down to block the pass, okay, he's shifting his body position, he's going to shoot. If the defenseman hasn't gone down yet, he's going to shift his body position and he's going to pass. And then that guy's going to score on the back door. That's pretty much how every single 2-on-1 goes. Not for Ryder Ritchie. He'll fake shot, toe drag around the sliding defenseman, and then you're like, okay, he's got that toe drag loaded up, he's going to shoot it, and then he fools everyone into thinking he's going to shoot, and then slides it over backdoor, and his teammate puts it in easy because everyone bid on it. And he's just so creative behind the net. Gretzky's office, he's given defensemen absolute tough times. They don't know whether to go to the right side, left side. As soon as a defenseman makes a choice, he goes the other way, either wraps it around or finds a defenseman coming in for a nice pass to hit them with a one-timer. There's just so many different options when Ryder Ritchie has the puck on his stick that it makes it really tough for opponents to get a read on him. And his teammates are loving being on a line with him because they're always going to find a way to get open, and he's going to find a way to get them the puck.
Ryder Ritchie had a goal and an assist in the gold medal game at the World Under-18s. He had a goal and an assist in the semifinals against Sweden at the World Under-18s, and he had a goal in the quarterfinals as well, or the final round robin game. So you look at that big game player, big game moment, and Ryder Ritchie stepped up. Now, Ryder Ritchie almost didn't represent Canada. He was invited to Team Sweden's under-16 camp before he ever met with Hockey Canada because he grew up a little bit in Sweden. His mother is Swedish. His dad, Byron Ritchie, had a long career, NHL, AHL, and over in Sweden when he had Ryder, of course. So Ryder's a Calgary guy, but does have Swedish heritage, including his uncle, Andreas Johansson. Remember that name, guys? Long time. I shouldn't say long time NHL. He played a few years in the National Hockey League, including 1998-99, when he played 69 games with the Ottawa Senators, 37 points. And Andreas Johansson also had 2 playoff games with the Ottawa Senators. So he's got half Swedish side of the family, half Canadian. And to me, look, he's a guy where I wouldn't even mind him at 25, Pillsy. I think that he's the type of guy that is going to make it despite maybe being a little bit undersized. He's up over 6 feet now. He's grown a little bit over the last year. And I think that that's kind of just going to help the style that he plays, because I think he's going to have to be a bottom 6 guy to start. Not to say that that's his ceiling, because he could pop off offensively. We know the Prince Albert Raiders were simply not a good team this past year. They're in their rebuild phase of their cycle, but I would like to see him play with more skilled teammates. And well, we did at the under-18s, and he had 8 points in 7 games. So that's what I'm saying. And even then he was in a third line role. You look at his time on ice, he's around 10, 12, 13 minutes there. I really like this player, Pillsy.
Yeah, there's a lot to like, Ross, and we know the Sens of the past, at least, were really into the generational hockey players. So having a dad and an uncle that played, and Ross, I was looking through Byron Ritchie's playing career, and he went over to Sweden in the 04-05 lockout. So if that lockout doesn't happen, I don't know this, but I'm assuming Byron met Ryder's mother in the lockout year, and that's when that connection was made, because he didn't.
I thought you were gonna say that's when the magic happened.
Well, hey, because then Byron didn't go back to Sweden until 2010. So,
right.
So that's something interesting there. But you look at a guy like Ryder Ritchie, and there's just so much offensive capability here. Wheeler loves the way he gets around defenders to get into the zone. And then once he's in the zone, like I mentioned, like the creativity with the playmaking is top notch. So certainly if you're looking for an offensive player, Ryder Ritchie is a guy you want to add to your system.
He certainly is. He comes in with an average ranking of 30.9. Pilsy, send stars for Ryder Ritchie.
So I've got Ryder Ritchie at 3.5 stars, Ross. He's very similar to me. I saw a lot of similarities to him and Cole Baudouin. I don't know if you agree with that.
I put them back to back on the list. I got Baudouin one spot ahead of Ritchie.
Okay, good. That validates that. I think they're similar players in similar ranges with similar potentials. Now, 3.5 stars, that means I like the player, but I don't necessarily love the fit for the Sens when it comes to what they need and where their range is. I don't like, where do you think Ryder Ritchie is going to get selected, Ross? I have a hard time pinpointing this one.
He could either be like, you know what player comparable comes to mind from last year's draft to be Easton Cowan, right? Like a guy like a little bit undersized, and obviously Cowan was playing on the London Knights, a little bit different than the Prince Albert Raiders, so the points were a lot easier to come by for Easton Cowan last year. But that same kind of shifty playmaking ability and that big game potential that Easton Cowan is becoming known for. So he went, I think, 28th last year, if I'm not mistaken. He was a late first-round pick. I see kind of the similar spot. 28 to 35 is probably where I see Ryder Ritchie being selected. But if your team just selected Ryder Ritchie, you're going to enjoy watching him develop because he's a highlight reel, man. He's fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I would not be disappointed if your team selected him for sure.
The Ryder Ritchie comes in at number 27 on our Locked On Senators NHL Draft Rankings. All right, that wraps up another edition of Locked On Senators. Thanks for watching, listening, engaging with the show, being a friend, telling a friend. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.